In today's Don't Wanna Cry video, we are going to be talking about K-pop songs that ripped off Western music. Hello everyone and welcome back, or welcome. As I stated before the intro, this video is going to be about K-pop songs that have a striking resemblance to some Western songs, just to say the least. Now, before we make it very far, I do want to make it clear that I'm not claiming that any of these are examples of plagiarism, so don't take that as what this video is about. I'm just saying that these things sound so similar that you could say that one song, if not directly inspired it, at least heavily inspired it. Now, it is no secret that K-pop tends to follow Western music trends pretty heavily. However, this video is focusing on some specific instances where the resemblance between two different songs is just uncanny. To avoid any confusion, this video is not talking about samples. Samples are their own thing and should be regarded as such. But anyways, let's not waste any more time and get straight into this video. Alright, coming up first on our list is Euphoria by Jungkook of BTS and Something Just Like This by the Chainsmokers featuring Coldplay. Considering how big of a hit Something Just Like This was, it shouldn't be a surprise that 1 year and 6 months later, BTS would release a similar song. For starters, they're in the same key, they have similar BPM and pacing, and they have a very similar instrumental style. But to see how similar they really are, let's give them a listen real quick. To make this a little more fun, I'm gonna put the two choruses directly on top of each other. Try to see if you can pick out which song is which. It might be harder than you think. Your Honor, I rest my case. Don't mind my change of attire, I just got off work, but hey tinny. Moving right along, we have Bad Boy by Red Velvet, inspired by EXO Tour Life by Lil Uzi Vert. This is a perfect example of a pair of songs that would be on this list, because when I first heard Bad Boy back in 2019, the first thought that jumped into my head was, ain't this EXO Tour Life? Now, Bad Boy is definitely its own song. It flows differently and has a different structure, but there's no denying SM copied the beat. Especially considering how close together these two songs were released, coming in at only 6 months. The similarities between these two songs are so apparent that I made a mashup of them back when I did that back in 2020, so we're gonna give it a listen.
후다 boy 수많은 사랑 속 눈에 띈 무심한 그 표정 I like that 내 호기심을 자극하지 홀린 듯 날 따라와 모두 환호해 너도 아닌 척해도 넌내 일을 해볼까.
I mean, honestly, looking back, I really wish that I'd known about the English version. Coming up next on our list, we have Heartbreak by Minho, inspired by Spider-Verse. Heartbreak by Minho, inspired by Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee. Now, this little single by Minho of SHINee, aka
My name is Minho!
While the song definitely deserved more attention, there's no denying its similarities between the hit from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Sunflower. Unlike the previous entries on this list, the similarities between these two are a bit less pronounced, although you can definitely hear them when you play certain bits back to back, which I will now demonstrate.
너의 기분을 쉽게 녹게
And I'm not trying to lose. Then you're left in the dust unless I stuck by you.
However, I think the most interesting similarity between these two songs is the similarity in their subject matter. They both have themes of two people that aspire to be in a relationship, but they just know that it could never work. With Minho's line,
You're just here for the heartbreak
fitting in perfectly with Sway Lee and Post Malone's,
I think your love would be too much, or you'd be left in the dust.
Okay. So, when my lovely brother first played these two songs, which are In Your Eyes by The Weeknd and Take Me Home by AT's back to back, I was shocked, flabbergasted, I was taken aback, to say the least. I really never expected one of my favorite K-pop songs to be copied. It's like that one meme where it's like, hey dude, can I borrow your homework? And it's like, yeah, but make sure it looks like you didn't copy, except, you know, the resemblance is there. And, you know, it shocked me to the core, and I was very upset about it. But honestly, both songs are bangers. The structure of the song, honestly, they're basically identical. If you played them one on top of the other, you would see just how closely related these songs are. They're sisters from a different mister.
I honestly couldn't have said it better myself, but honestly, it was really funny because Liz actually was not aware of In Your Eyes before I played the two back to back, and she basically lost all of her faith in humanity right there. Now, before anybody tries to say that no, ATEEZ didn't copy The Weeknd, synth music was just getting popular at the time, like he did make that album, and don't worry, we'll get to that. But the smoking gun about these two is the saxophone solo at the end. Take a listen. Before we dive into our next two songs, I would like to play a little game. Can you tell me what song the following instrumental is from? If you found that a little bit tricky, then that's okay, because it was actually a little bit of a trick question. What you had just heard was actually a composite of two instrumentals, that of Dum Dum by Red Velvet and Bang Bang by Jessie J, Ariana Grande, and Nicki Minaj. If it didn't even sound like there were two instrumentals, then that's entirely the point I was trying to make, because these two songs sound exactly the same. In all the previous examples, there's been at least some attribute of the song to differentiate it enough from the source material to the point where it's not quite copying, it's more like inspiration. Euphoria's bassline was distinctly different, Bad Boy had a much different structure, the melodies in Heartbreak were a lot different, and Take Me Home is quite a bit more emotional. But with Dum Dum, I'm honestly scratching my head as to how it is at all distinct from its obvious inspiration of Bang Bang. It's like they didn't even try, they just came up with some Korean lyrics, came up with a concept for the album, and just called it a day. Like, I know what I said at the beginning of the video about me not claiming that any of these are plagiarism, but this one low-key borders on plagiarism. Like, I'm surprised SM Entertainment didn't get a lawsuit over this. Like, goodness gracious. On a lighter note, I do love this music video, I do love this era, and this was a better time for Red Velvet overall. But the worst part is, this isn't even the last time an SM song is on this list. I mean, just, really, SM, do better. Third day of recording, third outfit. Here we go. Up next on our list is Don't Wanna Cry by 17, inspired by Closer by the Chainsmokers featuring Halsey. Now, it would be fairly amiss if we didn't include the song in some form, considering it's part of our channel's namesake, and as different as these two songs may sound, I just want you guys to hear me out, okay? I believe that Don't Wanna Cry is a perfect example of inspiration without imitation. Wooji of 17, aka their producer, did a fantastic job of simply using Closer as a bass and transforming it into his own song by changing things like, most noticeably, the key, but also the BPM and a little bit of the structure. But you can definitely still find the borrowed bits if you look for them, so let's check them out. Like I said earlier, Wooji is an amazing producer and did a great job of just borrowing some ideas and not just outright copying the song like some of the other entries on this list. See previous entry for details. So I don't really have much else to say here other than this is probably my favorite example off this list because it took me a while to notice, but once I did, I thought to myself, you know, this is actually really creative. Alright, coming up next we actually have two pairs of songs, and those are 90s Love by NCT U, taken from Belle Biv DeVoe.
Come on, say it. He's been practicing all week. Here we go.
Belle Biv DeVoe.
Yeah!
As well as Blessed Curse by Enhypen, inspired by Rock You Like a Hurricane by Scorpion. I decided to put these two together because, unlike everything else on this list, these two songs were released several decades after their source material. This is because these two songs serve to pay homage to those older songs, in a bit of a respect your elders, know where you came from sort of way. 90s Love is more than obvious. I mean, first off, it's called 90s Love. Second, Poison's bass line is one of the most recognizable pieces of music that you can find, up there with We Will Rock You. Blessed Curse does something very similar, but this song isn't as in your face about it, so I'll show it to you real quick. I think it's pretty safe to say that both 90s Love and Blessed Curse have honored their ancestors well, so we'll move on to the next item on our list. And for our next entry on this list, we have The Feels by Twice, inspired by Levitating by Dua Lipa, featuring DaBaby, which is the only acceptable version of that song, I should add. Out of all the songs on this list, The Feels as well as Don't Wanna Cry are the two most far removed from their original influence. On paper, the only real similarities between The Feels and Levitating are their key, as well as their genre, new disco. That being said, the reason that I think The Feels was definitely inspired by Levitating has everything to do with timing as well as business strategy. Anybody who was on the radio in 2021 knows that Levitating owned the entire year. In fact, the song spent 77 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. With this in mind, let's consider the fact that The Feels was Twice's English market debut. From a business perspective, it only makes sense that JYP would give them a song with a sound that was really popular at the time. And if not Levitating specifically, then The Feels was definitely inspired by the new disco sound that Dua Lipa had been making popular for the past 2 years or so. Did it work? Well, I'm honestly not sure. I never heard the song on the radio, but the radio is mostly curated, so that doesn't really prove anything. But I also never heard anybody talk about Twice outside of a K-pop context. They got about the same amount of attention as Super M, and then nothing ever came from it. Although, I will say that this is just how I saw things play out. Who knows, maybe I missed something and The Feels really did work. Do you guys think that The Feels broke the Western barrier? Let me know in the comments. And now, for the final entry on this list, we have not one, but 3 songs inspired by one. You guys should already know what it is, but we have I Can't Stop Me by Twice, La Di Da by Everglow, and So Bad by Stacey, all inspired by Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. There is potentially a longer list of songs that could fit in this entry, but I think that these 3 songs are more than enough to prove the point that I'm about to make to you. I'm sure many of you remember when Blinding Lights was the biggest song in the entire world. It holds the record for the longest period of a song being on the Billboard Top 100 at 90 weeks, which is almost 2 years. Given The Weeknd's immense global popularity and his influence on musical trends, it's no surprise that the K-pop industry at large would follow suit. Heck, if you want to even go domestic, Blinding Lights and its success directly inspired the Kid Leroy's Stay featuring Justin Bieber. The point is, synth pop music and the Outrun aesthetic as a whole is now in the public consciousness, and it brought us these 3 songs as well as many more, 2 major comebacks, and a group's debut. Was synth pop an era that has since passed? In most regards, yeah. But I don't think there's a single song in history that has inspired so much music from all around the globe than Blinding Lights. It's safe to say that it's gonna go down as one of the greatest songs to have ever been made. And with that said, I think we've just about come to the end of this list. As you can see, I'm on my 4th outfit, and it's not a moment too soon. If you've made it this far, I just want to thank you guys for watching this video and hearing what I have to say about these songs. I do want to reiterate that, except in the case of Dum Dum maybe, I'm not claiming that any of these are plagiarism or that any of these songs are bad because they were potentially inspired. In fact, in most of these instances, I love both versions of the songs. Like, some of these are some of my favorite songs ever. So this is not meant to be a criticism at all. This is just a lot of things that I've noticed over time that I wanted to share with you guys. Honestly though, even if it's just one of you guys, I would really appreciate it if some of you guys decided to stick around for more, because I've got some really cool stuff planned that I want to make, and at the end of the day, I just want someone to watch it. I'm not sure what the next video is going to be, but if you've enjoyed this one, then you'll definitely enjoy whatever we have next, so stick around for that. And until that next video comes, what was my thing?
this time.
Blah, blah, blah.